Toast on the Coast. I'm John Curry, and I'm with my friend Philip Zeis here. And today we're just going to kind of talk about why Philip's here, what you do. Philip's a good friend of mine. He is a local business attorney / other things, what we're going to discuss. Mm-hmm. And, you know, let me just tell you how I met Philip. Philip and I met in 2003. I had a wireless business / it was accessory / repair company, kiosk based in malls across the country. And I had a license agreement. And we were in the middle of an acquisition. And we found lots of holes in this thing. And I was referred to him by another friend of mine. And Mr. Zeis helped me fix that license agreement. And we did go to closing. And saved me from a lot of hassle, probably lawsuits, things I was doing wrong, all kinds of minutia that I was in, right? So
hopefully helped you keep some money that you wouldn't have otherwise kept.
I like that.
Yes.
Well, Philip, welcome.
Thank you.
Let's get to know you a little bit here.
Yes.
As a local business owner that I have known for umpteen years, I'd probably say 25 years, what I'd like to do is share experiences and introduce people to other people in Central Florida when I have a good experience, right? So tell me a little bit about the stuff you do.
So I am a business attorney. I am a real estate attorney. I am an intellectual property attorney, a registered patent attorney. And so I help people with forming their business, drafting contracts that memorialize their agreements accurately, with acquiring property, with leasing property, with protecting their inventions, protecting their trademarks that identify them as the source of their good or service, that protect their creative creations like Toast on the Coast.
Okay, gotcha. So I've always been, I think, somebody who aspired to be an inventor. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's why I'm interested in your business. And I realized that in my professional opinion, if you invent something, that is like the epitome of ultimate business success, right? Because like I was involved in my first company, royalties is a very good way to, or easy way to make money while you're sleeping, right? So some people refer it to mailbox money, if you will, right?
Passive income.
Passive income. That's I don't use the appropriate terms. So, you know, with that being said, we'll talk a little bit about IP, mm-hmm. right? Intellectual property. And in my experiences going through life, I feel like most things have been thought of. And a lot of things have been executed, but I feel like part of the patent process or business, if you will, is the execution of that item. And let's talk a little bit about that, because you know more than anybody. How long have you been practicing, by the way?
I've been an attorney for 30 years in Florida.
30 years in Florida. Where'd you go to school?
I went to school, undergrad at Rollins, where I had a radio show on WPRK 91.5, and Stetson for law school. Took and passed the Florida bar in 93, took and passed the New York bar in 94, took and passed the patent bar in 2010, and here I am. So let's talk about inventions.
Okay.
One thing that you said interests me, and that is almost everything's been thought of already, right?
Right.
And as an illustration of that, I am an inventor. I have a patent, an issued, although now expired, issued patent on a better paper towel holder. And I thought I had 4 or 5 other inventions when I was in my invention phase, right? One of them was, we all have a washer and a dryer in our house, right? Washing machine. Well, many of us do anyway, if we're lucky enough to have it.
Right.
If we don't have to go to the laundromat, we've got those in our house. And there's a hose connected to a spigot that connects to the back of your washing machine. Now, if we were smart, we would turn that hose off every time we stopped using the machine, and we would turn that hose on every time we wanted to use the machine, so that there isn't water under pressure in that hose, because that hose is gonna break.
At some point,
it's just a matter of time. Whether it's 5 years or 50 years, one day it's going to break, and the whole house is going to be full of water up to about a foot.
Okay.
So I thought, since we aren't the kind of people who are going to turn on and turn off that hose every time we use the machine, wouldn't it be great if there was a device that you hooked to the spigot and then the hose hooked to it, and you push the button when you're going to wash a load, and it opens the valve for the cycle, whether it's an hour or a half hour, whatever, and then it automatically turns off the valve so that there's no pressure on that hose. If the hose breaks, you have a puddle of water about 12 inches in diameter, not a whole house.
Not a whole house full, yeah.
So I thought, that's a great idea. I go to Home Depot, I go to Lowe's every weekend, chasing the lawnmower, and and I've never seen this in Lowe's or Home Depot. This is going to be amazing. And every insurance company is going to want you to have it. They're going to give you a break on your insurance if you have it installed in your house. Right? Yeah. Because they're going to pay less in payout right? Yeah. If there aren't claims for water damage, right? So then I start searching. And, they were patented already in the 1970s, and they've just never done anything with it.
Okay, so where's the product?
The issue is not where is the product. The issue is, as an illustration of people have already, every idea has already been thought of, right? It was true that this concept had been thought of already. The problem is not every idea that's been thought of is actually marketable. And not every idea that's marketable is actually marketed, right? Or marketed competently. So it's not just think of an invention, protect that invention, and you will automatically make money. There are lots more steps after get your patent.
So is one of the business models in being an IP attorney, get people in the door, get them to sign a retainer with you, get them signed up, and then run them through the process?
Yes. I mean, what my job is, and I don't know that every patent attorney does this, I hope they do, but what my job is to not just protect the invention, but to educate the inventor, right?
Of the process.
Of the process and of the shortfalls, right?
Right.
You cannot approach the patent process thinking, as soon as I have a patent issued, they're going to call me on the phone. They're going to make sure there's clearance in my driveway for that dump truck full of money. And then they're going to back up the dump truck full of money and just dump it in the driveway. Right. And I'm going to also have to, call some friends to guard my money. So for instance, with my invention, the Better Paper Towel Holder, we got the patent issued. And because my then partner prepared the patent application, it really didn't cost me anything other than the filing fees. But we had 3 embodiments, 3 versions of the invention, right? And I approached an engineering company. I need a prototype. I need a 3D CAD rendering so that I can, go get a mold made and start manufacturing. Just to get one embodiment, one prototype, one 3D rendering was $8,000. 3 embodiments, $24,000. And that's before you ever even spend money producing the mold, and then spend money producing stock inventory so that you can put it online and sell it, right? So
you almost need a business plan, if you will.
You most certainly need a business plan and financing, right?
Right.
Because most people that come to me are not, this is my 5th career. I have 4 pensions from the 4 careers prior to this career, and I'm just made of money, and money is no object. I just spend whatever you need. That client is rare.
Right. So a lot of times then you got to get money from grandma. You got a equity line in your house. So I would say, basically I don't know what you're alluding to, but somebody could financially ruin themselves by chasing a dream, right? And then, that wouldn't be good.
No.
It's like anything else in business. So if you believe in it, you eat, breathe, and sleep it. And I'm a testimony to that. There's things I've done where I've really believed in it and it's worked. And there's things that I've kind of believed in and it hasn't worked, right? So the best advice that you could give somebody regarding IP, because I think what a lot of times is people are afraid to tell people what the idea is, right? Actually, I'm going to give you just a quick example. Sure. I'm probably going to show my age here, but there's a show I used to watch on Saturdays, and I can't remember the name of the show, but I remember the commercial. And the commercial was it was almost like the Flintstones. It was a rock, and the guy was like,
invent help.
Invent help. You know what it is. And he'd be like, it was like maybe the person, he was like chiseling a rock or something. And I actually called the number. I go to Orlando, and I had this really cool invention that I thought was haunting me for 3 years. Okay. And I walk in, and the guy's like, "Oh, I need you to sign this piece of paper," or whatever. You walk in, and he goes, "Okay, well, tell me what your invention is." And I go, "Well, tell you what my invention is. What if I tell you and then you use it?" And he goes, "Well, we're Invent Help, and we like to help people take their inventions and market them." And I go, "Well, I don't even really know who you are. Like, what's the process?" And he goes, "Well, if you don't tell me what your invention is, then I can't help you."
Right.
And I don't know what happened because it was so fast. I don't know if I said, "Thank you so much for your time," and shook the guy's hand, or ran out like a scared cat. Yeah. But I wasn't there more than another 30 seconds.
So when you're talking to a registered patent attorney, that registered patent attorney owes you a duty of confidentiality, right?
Okay.
So when you're talking to a registered patent attorney, you are completely safe, assuming that person is a reputable person, right? Because anyone, if a human is involved, you've got good humans and you've got bad humans, right?
Okay.
So assuming that person is a good human, right? You can disclose your invention to them and not fear that they're going to run off with it. If they do, they risk losing their license, right?
Got it. Right. Which I would, at that point, I was 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So I was naive and didn't understand the whole process.
Sure.
And I'm going to tell you what the invention is, because I've never told you this before. So what it was the toilet bowl of the toilet bowl, the tank of a toilet bowl fills up water after you flush.
The upper deck.
The upper deck. There you go. Okay. So I remember flushing the toilet, going to bed as a kid, and it would keep running all night. And it was because the flapper didn't go all the way down. Well,
jiggle the handle.
After a couple, jiggle the handle. So I would go, I remember vaguely going in and out of the bathroom, like jiggling the handle. And the reason it was happening was there was a chain, and the chain would get twisted. And so it would be like 4 or 5 links short, and would keep the flapper open. So I said, "Oh, this is very easy. Let's do a piece of fishing line, a nylon string, something where it would just, it doesn't get caught on the other links," right? So that was my invention. I'm like, oh my gosh, every toilet in the world is going to have not a chain. They're going to have a
curry cord.
A curry cord. And then, I'm going to be all over the world. And, so that, I don't remember when it changed, when the chains were no longer a thing, but it happened some years later, and I didn't get a part of the royalties. I remembered I had PTSD of running out of invent help.
Yeah.
And running in my car scared. So I think what happens is, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, and hopefully some people that are watching our podcast now would say, I invented that, but I did nothing about it. Or I wanted to do something about it, but I didn't have the money. Or I didn't know how to do it. So obviously you offer consultations, sure, right? Yeah. And that's what I like about you, is because when you talk about good humans and bad humans, you're a good human.
I try.
I try to consider myself a good human as well. Thank you. So that's really an important part of the business, the things that you do. And I realize that there's probably not an invention every single day, and I've never used you for IP. We've talked about a couple things, and you actually helped me with a trademark.
Still IP.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's true. Certify your home. So we did that years ago. But in regards to the business side of things with your real estate, your real estate practice, or helping people with real estate law and business law. So let's talk about a few of the other things that you like to do, which with regards to documents and stuff like that, because I know that I get a lot of calls all the time. John, where do I go for this? Who can help me do this? So let's talk about the things that, other than the IP.
Sure. So let's start with forming a business, right? Forming a business is a relatively simple process, but one of the most frequent calls I get is, you know what, I tried to form this company and I screwed it up, and now can you help me, right? And it ends up being more expensive for me to undo what they did or fix what they did than it would have been to just call me and say, hey, form this entity for me. Usually it's 1 hour of my time. I happen to charge $300 an hour as we speak today. That may change over time, but as we speak today, it's $300 an hour, and it's an hour of my time, plus the filing fee. So for an LLC, for instance, which in my opinion is a better entity than a corporation for most purposes, you got a filing fee of $125, you have attorney's fees of $300, and it's done right.
So you're in business done right for $425.
Yes. Now, why is an LLC a better entity, in my opinion, than a corporation is? A couple of reasons. Number one, a corporation requires, when you form a corporation, you are required annually to have a meeting of members, well, shareholders in the case of a corporation, and at that meeting of shareholders to elect a board of directors, and then to have an annual meeting of the board of directors where that board of directors elects officers. And you're required to keep minutes of those meetings and keep them in a corporate kit. And I'm not suggesting you can't do that in an LLC. You can, but you're not required by law to do it, right? So it's a less formal, from the perspective of having to meet requirements, it's a less formal entity. Number two, with a corporation, if you own John Curry Inc., and you are in your own personal automobile, and you have an accident where you injure someone, heaven forbid, right? And you get a judgment against you for $1 million, and you have insurance of $100,000, and they want to come after you for the $900,000 balance. If you own John Curry Inc., and John Curry Inc. is making money every day, they can take your shares in John Curry Inc. to satisfy their judgment. And now John Curry Inc. is theirs instead of yours.
Oh.
With an LLC, they have what's called a charging lien on your membership interest, which is the equivalent of shares with an LLC. They have a charging lien on your membership interest. And until that $900,000 judgment is paid off, they get whatever you would have gotten by way of distribution, right? So distributions of profit go to them until it's paid off, and then it goes right back to you. But you retain ownership of the membership interest. You still vote the membership interest. They don't take it from you like they do if you own shares in a corporation.
Never knew that.
Yeah. So in my opinion, an LLC is a better way to go. And it's relatively cheap. Now, a corporation is technically $50 cheaper on the front end. It's $75 in filing fees instead of $125 in filing fees. But it's more expensive every year when you renew. It's $150 instead of $138.75. So after about 3 years, you're saving money every year on the LLC instead of.
And what's the difference when the truck is full of money? And
well, yeah,
in your driveway?
when they're calling you to find out where do we back up the dump truck full of money,
it's irrelevant, right? Good. So starting a business is something that people come to you for, and then
drafting contracts.
Drafting contracts. You like contracts?
Sure. Without contracts, you don't have a record of what your agreement is. Without a written contract, a contract can be verbal, a contract can be in writing.
Okay.
The problem with a verbal contract is how do you prove what the terms are?
Sure.
Right? With a written contract, it's there in writing what your terms are, right? So just because you have a written contract, however, doesn't mean you're not going to have a lawsuit. Because you're going to say you interpret that language one way, and I'm going to say I interpret that language another way. But the language is there on paper, and a judge can read that language and say, okay, well, this is the reasonable interpretation of that language that I think, is relevant to the situation. So memorializing your agreement is an important part of having a written contract, and that's why writing contracts is something I like to do.
Okay, so do you prefer writing a contract start to finish, or reading an existing contract and giving people advice? Does it not matter?
It really doesn't matter. I mean, from the perspective of the client spending money, it's probably cheaper for me to review someone else's contract
Sure.
and give opinion about it and make modifications to it or suggestions for modification than to write the whole thing from scratch. But it doesn't matter to me, unless it's a horrible contract.
Right.
If it's a horrible contract and I waste time reviewing it and then just scrap it and start over, we've wasted money.
So it sounds to me like if you're in business, you're the guy that really is almost a business consultant, if you will, because, you know, the word attorney, sometimes people get scared, right? And let's call it the way it is, right? Attorneys typically like...
Wear suits.
Yeah. Where's your suit? Where's your tie?
In the closet, you know.
Okay.
When I go to a pretrial conference next week, I will take out the suit, I will put it on, and I'll go to that pretrial conference.
So, okay. So do you litigate?
Oh, sure.
You do?
Yeah.
And that's why you have, is it a Jekyll and a Hyde situation? So it's like you're
I prefer Superman analogy to Jekyll.
okay, super.
So I got the, curl here and the glasses, right? And then I smooth back the curl, I take off the glasses, and I go into court.
Okay, perfect. I don't know what you're allowed to talk about. I know that there's like, what's it called?
Attorney-client privilege.
Attorney-client privilege. So I always like to know, like, what is like an aha moment in your career? What was a funny thing that happened in your career? What was one of the best things that you worked on, or customers that you had, or experiences? Do you have anything like that you could share with us?
Well, attorney-client privilege doesn't apply to a circumstance where it's already public, right? So if I am representing someone in a lawsuit, anyone can go online and see.
I see.
In that lawsuit, this person is represented by that attorney.
Got
Right? So, for instance, I had a lawsuit where, and this will be interesting to you because you are a realtor, right?
Okay.
I had a client who sold a house. After they sold their house, the buyer alleged that the seller knew about a latent defect and didn't disclose it to the buyer.
Aha.
And they used as evidence of that the fact that a plumber came after closing and had to clear out a drain line of tree roots.
Okay.
They must have known. The problem is you have to prove that they actually knew. That they knew about this defect, that no one else knew about the defect, and they therefore had an obligation to disclose it.
Okay.
So we go to trial, they put on their witnesses, which was basically the buyers themselves,
Right.
saying, we came to the house right after closing, and I took a shower, and the floor of the shower immediately filled up with water. Well, A, the sellers didn't live in the house. It was a rental. B, there was no proof. There was no smoking gun. No, we called this plumber to fix the problem, and it happened to be the same plumber that had fixed that problem 18 times already.
Right.
There was nothing like that. So they couldn't prove in their direct case that my client had knowledge of this defect prior to the closing. So when they finished their case and turned the trial over to me, I said, I move for a directed verdict. And the judge said, granted. Because they hadn't proved in their case that my client knew.
Right.
They weren't able to offer any evidence that my client knew. So that was a wow, that worked. Motion for directed verdict worked.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
I've had a situation where so when I'm selling real estate, I tell people it's very important that you disclose everything that you know. Hence a seller's disclosure,
Yes.
which is typically a 4-page document, probably, what is it, 15, 18 questions. And so I tell people the reason why you have to disclose everything is A, it's the right thing to do.
Sure.
B, I only want to work with good humans.
Right.
And you want to make sure that when the buyer buys your house, they walk outside, they're checking the mailbox, they say hi to Bob and Sue next door.
Right.
Sue doesn't say, hey, nice to meet you. What did you end up doing
About that.
about the mold in the house? Or what did they do about that water leak? And then you're like, Huh.
Or I see they painted over that crack in the wall that goes from the foundation all the way to this.
Exactly. So that's why it's like disclose, explain, right? This particular instance, they didn't live in the house, so they didn't know.
Right.
And going back to that was a cast iron thing, right? That was kind of a
I don't know whether it was cast iron. I don't remember.
it was a plumbing drainage issue.
Drain line.
What I've learned about this, and I'm going to go on a little real estate topic for a second, is that
So we're putting on our real estate hats?
we're realtors now. So when you have a house where two people are living,
It's my realtor stare.
I like it.
Two people living.
Two people living.
Yes.
You're taking a shower, 2 showers a day. You're using your dishwasher once a week, whatever. That's scenario A. Now 5 people move in that house. 2 people are taking showers at the same time.
Different demand.
Right?
Yeah.
Mom's doing, mom or dad is doing the laundry.
Sure.
Somebody's running the dishwasher. Somebody's washing their car. Somebody's, cleaning dishes in the bar sink. Whatever it is. I mean, they're
Filling their aquarium.
filling their aquarium. Everything is running at the same time. It's a different situation. So people say, I have never had a drain problem.
Right.
Well, that's because you are 2 people or
Right.
you're 1 person.
Right.
So it's important that whenever you do an inspection, and most inspectors know this, right? That you run everything at the same time. Water pressure is a thing too, right? Because if you're running a 1/4-inch line instead of a 1/2-inch line, you're not going to get the pressure that you need. So we're not turning this into a brick and mortar inspection show,
Right.
but that's a good example.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that with us. So litigation, no problem. Do you, what would you say, what makes you different than the average attorney in your field? And what is your MO, modus operandi? What is it that you, what makes Zeis Law different?
So, every person is different, right? Even though we're very similar, same hair, even though we're very similar, there are differences, subtle differences. You're wearing blue, I'm wearing green, right? So everyone is different. What I like to think about the way I practice law and how I practice law is different from how other people practice law. I think that I approach problems differently, right? I think I see the problem differently than other attorneys see the problem. And that's true. Look, if you look at that microphone, you're looking at it straight on. I'm looking at it from the side. So I have a different view of it, right? But I think that I look at problems differently. And because I look at problems differently, I come up with answers or possible solutions that are different from the solutions that other attorneys might suggest. I think another difference about me is I try to be pragmatic. I try to be realistic. I'm not in this because I recognize I can make $50,000 in attorney's fees litigating this thing, even though a phone call might resolve it, right? I would rather, for that client, I would rather call the attorney on the other side and say, hey, look, here's the weakness I see in your case. I recognize we have some weaknesses too. Look, here's a reasonable resolution. Can we get this thing resolved? And be done with it, as opposed to, hey, let's battle over this for 2 years. I'm going to make my 50 grand in attorney's fees. And you know what? We may or may not win. And that's not my problem. My problem is making $50,000 in attorney's fees. That's not me. I'm the try and solve the problem attorney. And I'm the, if this solution to the problem doesn't work, how about this solution to the problem? And if that solution to the problem doesn't work, how about this solution to the problem? That's what I think is different.
And I've noticed that you've done that with me as well. And I think that that's what's attracted me to want to use you, is because I feel like we're working through the problem, and you're not building up this big case, or you're not trying to sell me on, well, we need to do this, we need to do this, and we need to get ourselves ready for, for this fight or whatever. And I've never had to have you protect me from a invention standpoint or anything like that. But we've done contract laws and all the things we've talked about that we've done. And you even said to me sometimes, I'm like, should I sign this agreement? And you're like, well, I can't answer that question, but I can tell you, if you sign this agreement, you're agreeing to this, this, and this. And I personally have no problem with this and this. That's a decision you have to make.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, if you want to get involved in this business or this person, I don't see them changing these two things.
Right.
And so in any type of agreement, I know that everybody talks about a win-win, but there's always going to be something, especially we talked about this in the franchise business. There's always going to be a side that's heavier, weighed to one side of things, right?
Negotiating power.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Somebody has more negotiating power.
So you did say something, though, that I want to talk about, and that is there is a time when it's appropriate to fight, right? And if you're going to fight, you do have to go through the steps of preparing for that fight. So I'm not suggesting you should never litigate. That's not my suggestion. What I am suggesting is if there's an opportunity to resolve it without litigation, you're going to spend less money in attorney's fees, you're going to get the same result or maybe even a better result, and you're going to get it today instead of in 2 years. I think it's important to try that first. And if that doesn't work, try it a different way. And if that doesn't work, try it a different way. And then if that doesn't work, and you're ready to pony up the money, because that's a business decision, right?
Sure.
This should be a business decision, not an emotional decision.
Not an emotional decision.
This should not be, I'm pissed. This should be, you know what? This is costing me $1 million a year, so it makes sense for me to spend 50 grand to try and not lose $1 million a year.
Right.
Instead of, I'm pissed.
So you really understand time is money, and you try to let your clients understand that time is money, because it really is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
clients are focused on the emotion of it.
right.
And it's my job to say, number one, I understand the emotion, and you have the right to be angry about this. But number two, counsel them, right? I'm an attorney and counselor at law. Counsel them. Look, yes, these are valid feelings, but we're fighting over silverware that you can buy at Walmart. So you know what? Instead of paying me $1,000, take $35.57, go to Walmart, buy a replacement set of silverware, and we're done.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So you sometimes, and that's a ridiculous example, but it's a simplification of the problem, right?
Right.
If there is a solution that can be done reasonably, let's try and do that reasonable solution.
And I like that that's what I really like about you. You save me lots of time. You've offered some very good advice on a personal level and a business level as well. So I really appreciate that. Do a little shameless plug here, right? So
ready for the shameless plug?
Yes.
Sandalwood Band, right?
Yes.
Go to Camp Holly. Go there the weekend before Halloween. Go there the weekend before New Year's Eve. Go there from 1 to 5. Bring your ears with you, right? Listen with those ears that you bring with me to the music that's playing, the vocals to which will be coming out of this face.
I love it.
Yes.
So attorney by day.
Yes. Superman curl, suit, singer at night.
Singer at night, right? And so the name of the band is Sandalwood.
Sandalwood, yes.
And the type of music is?
Well, John, that's an interesting question.
So am I going to get the attorney answer that's going to take?
It's evolving, you see. It was, historically, we've been doing classic rock. And we still do classic rock. That is 90% of what we do. But we have a new keyboard player. We have a new drummer. Our bass player is a relatively young guy. I'm an old fart, and so is our guitarist. But the younger crowd has encouraged us to expand our musical horizon. So we're playing some modern English. We're playing some Depeche Mode. We're playing some REM now.
I like it.
We're expanding beyond really great music. I mean, the Beatles and Cream and Steppenwolf and, Bad Company and, some really great music, Grand Funk Railroad, Chicago, but we're expanding.
I love it. I'm definitely going to be at both shows.
I hope to be at both shows.
Okay. I have yet to be at a show, but this is going to be my first. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in.
Yes.
Philip Zeis, ZeisLaw.com.
Toast on the coast.
Toast on the coast here. Philip's located in Melbourne. We're here in Satellite Beach. Once again, John Curry, Realty World Curry Properties. We focus on luxury residential real estate, commercial real estate, and property management. We're your one-stop shop for anything real estate in Brevard County, Indian River, and Volusia. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, John.
Enjoyed everything.
Good talking with you.
Have a great week.
Yes.